Class expressions in JavaScript let you define a new class inside of any expression. This is useful when you need an anonymous class, and it also lets you create a new single instance of one of those anonymous classes. Let's take a look at them in action. If you've worked with modern JavaScript, you're probably very familiar with normal class statements. So we could say class foo, for instance, and then we'd have our class body here. In this case, I'll leave that empty. Now, the nice thing about JavaScript is that classes are actually just objects, so we can go and pass them around like normal objects. So up here, I've defined a makeThing function, which is taking a single variable, and then it is creating a new instance of that using the new operator here. I can then call makeThing and actually pass my foo class to that. So I'll say makeThing foo, and we'll get back an instance of the foo class that we defined on the line above. So that's using a normal class statement, but what class expressions allow us to do is define a new class inside of an expression, and you can have that class appear anywhere that a normal expression can. So let's go back here, and instead of defining a class outside here, let's just call makeThing, and we're going to pass in a new anonymous class. So we're going to say class, so it's the same syntax that we were doing before, so we'll say class foo, and then we can just pass that in, and now we're defining the class directly inside of the call to makeThing. We get the same result back. We're getting a new instance of that foo class. Class expressions have all of the normal functionality that a normal class statement does. So I could go back here, and let's go into our class expression for foo, and I can just add a method bar, which will return 5. And now I could say makeThing and then call bar on the result. And you'll see that I get back 5, because again, we're calling makeThing, which is going to create an instance of our foo class here. And then on that instance, we're going to call bar. So inside of the class expression body here, we can define methods, properties. We can do all of the normal operations we'd expect on a class statement, but inside of the class expression. Now, with class expressions, we can actually even omit the class name. So if we go back here, we actually don't even need the name foo here. So I can get rid of this, and now we'll get back a new instance of this class that does not have a name. The benefit of having a name here is that this name, so when we're saying class foo for the class expression, that can only be used inside of the class itself, and it also helps identify instances of the class for things like debugging. However, that when you define a class expression, the name foo here cannot be used anywhere outside of the program. So if we go back here, and let's go and rename this to bar. So we'll say bar here. If I try doing something like new bar, that is not valid because that class is not defined anywhere except inside of this class expression. However, if I went here and said new bar, I can actually go and create an instance of bar inside of this class expression because bar, the name, is valid inside of the expression, but is not valid anywhere outside of that class expression. Now, because class expressions can appear in any part of a normal JavaScript expression, one pattern you might see is creating a new instance of an anonymous class that you define with a class expression. So here we could just say new, and then normally we'd pass in a class name, but in this case we can pass in a class expression. So I'll say new class, and then I can go and define my class here. What this is doing is it is creating an instance of this new class. So we have defined our class here, and then we're creating a single instance of that anonymous class that we just defined. Again, we could give it a name if we wanted to, but in this case that name is optional. We can also start filling in the body of this class expression. So we could go and add a method bar, for instance. Again, we'll just say return 5. And we can also go and add a constructor. So I'll say constructor, and then I'm going to take a variable x and say this.x equals x, which is the x that we're getting in here. So now I'm creating a new instance of this class. When I create this, you can see that x is undefined. Now, if we wanted to pass some arguments to the constructor, all we have to do is after the class here, so when we're defining the class, we just put the argument list. So here I could pass in 10. For the constructor. And this is, again, going to say we're calling new on this anonymous class that we're defining from here to here. And then we're passing in the normal arguments to the constructor. In this case, we're passing in 10, which is going to set x is equal to 10. You can see that the object that we get back has x set to 10. And we could also go and call the bar method on that. So I could say new x and then call bar, and we get back 5. As you can see, class expressions can get complicated, and you definitely don't want to overuse them. I find myself using class expressions most often when I need to define an anonymous class. So often I'll find myself doing something like new class, and then I'll say extends, and then extend some other class. So here we're extending the air class, and then I'll go and define whatever I want inside of the class body for my new anonymous class, maybe pass in some arguments to the constructor. And this lets you go create a single instance of the anonymous class that you're defining here. So that's personally how I find myself using class expressions most often, but there are plenty of other ways that you can use them. Class expressions are a pretty cool feature though, because they let you define these classes inside of any expression, and combined with JavaScript's ability to pass around classes like normal objects, you can really come up with some creative uses for them. So that's a quick introduction to class expressions in JavaScript.